Now, on to the landmark ruling from the Supreme Court today that could lead many states like Washington to legalize betting on college and professional sports. In a 6-3 vote, the court struck down a federal law that required states to actually ban gambling on the outcome of sporting events. The ruling could set the stage for states to expand legalized gambling as a source of government revenue. Until now, Nevada has been the only state where legalized sports betting is allowed. Today's decision was a victory for former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who had challenged the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act passed by Congress in 1992. Christie posted on Twitter, quote, "A great day for the rights of states and their people to make their own decisions. New Jersey citizens wanted sports gambling, and the federal government had no right to tell them no. The Supreme Court agrees with us today," end quote. The Gambling Commission in Washington state says this is a significant decision that will likely change the landscape of gambling in the United States. This is something we could see here in light of this. So what do you think? Text us and let us know. Should Washington allow sports gambling? 206-448-4545. Let's go to Chris.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with Brian Decora, the CEO of Snoqualmie Casino. For those of you new to the area, we're just about 20 minutes east of Seattle here, if you want to go swing by. This is obviously very relevant news for you. You've been working towards this decision with the American Gaming Association, so at face value, this is something you would be for.
Definitely. This is something the industry has been working on for several years, actually. What it does is it allows the states to both legalize and regulate sports betting and provides consumer protections that aren't currently available, but there's a lot of sports betting that's already happening anyway. So why not regulate it, potentially tax it?
And we should talk about that because a lot of people will say, well, of course he would be for it. He works out at the casino and they just want more business. But you're talking about the fact that some estimated $4.8 billion spent just last year on illegal sports betting. So this is one of those scenarios where we know for sure that it's already happening. It's rampant. So why not maybe legalize it and put some restrictions on it, is what you're saying? Yeah,
definitely. So it's actually $5 billion bet on the Super Bowl. About 97% of that is done illegally. Annually, it's around $150 billion in America. So it is happening. Why not regulate it, put it in an environment where there's already brick and mortar casinos that are heavily regulated already, provide some tax revenue for the state of Washington if approved by the state compacts with the tribes, and provide some type of regulation and consumer protection for something that's happening already anyway. So I'd be a proponent.
So, you know, federally speaking, I mean, this is reminiscent of what happened to this state when marijuana became legal, of course. There was two sides of the coin. Some people not okay with it, some people saying it's about time. Then the revenue comes in, roads start being built, things are generated for the state and people at large. Do you suppose this might be a similar scenario? In other words, what do you see as the benefits for the state of Washington if we were to embrace legalized sports betting? Yeah,
I think there are a lot of parallels there, and that this is a law that was repealed, that was an antiquated law. This is something that goes back a long time, and times have changed. People are doing it already anyway. I already referenced the number that's happening, but why not regulate it where you provide those consumer protections, and we tax it essentially, whether through compact fees or through the state allowance to allow that to happen. But somewhere I think there's an opportunity to have a discussion and see if it makes sense for Washington. I think it does. It gives more money back to the state for public use, but it's a good discussion to have, and hopefully we'll be having it soon.
And a lot of people are weighing in throughout the country as the word came down today. Mark Cuban, of course, all but a household name now, owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He actually told CNBC today that he thinks that basically the owners of these four professional, all of this professional sports teams basically just saw the value of their teams double if this does happen. So currently only Nevada, Vegas, which people should draw a parallel with. They've got a hockey team. They're in the playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights, that's a professional team. Seattle, we look like we're about to get a professional hockey team. The Oakland Raiders, the football team, will be moving to Las Vegas. So this is something that they're learning to work with, and it's already being regulated. So it may very well be coming to the state of Washington.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And, some of the fear was if you have professional sports too close to gaming environments that there could be corruption. Well, 80% of current NFL teams are within an hour's drive of a casino already anyway. So that fear is, one of those old, antiquated theories that I don't think really holds water. But certainly a lot of the sports teams are investors in DraftKings and things like that. So they have an interest in gaining more interest into their actual sports. And sports betting certainly does that. You see it in Las Vegas.
Brian Decora with Snoqualmie Casino. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate all that great
Thanks
insight.
for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, thank you. We'll kick things over to Michelle. What's going on?
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to let you know that we've got a Twitter poll going on. Should Washington State make sports betting legal? 68% of you said yes, sign me up. Only 32% said no, we don't need that. And we're getting a lot of texts as well that we should share. Sports gambling in Washington, yes, goes on anyway. No, gambling should not be allowed in Washington State. That was from Richard in Tacoma, so thank you very much. A lot of people have opinions on this. And we've also been getting a lot of texts on the head tax as well.